Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ARCSOA Elite Series preseason show. Preseason testing just wrapped up, and now we can kind of talk about the things that we're going to be expecting this season. Now, before we begin this, I'm going to say we don't have enough time to go over exactly what each team is doing in preseason testing. That will be all up on the ARCSOA Elite Series Discord, and we'll also kind of go through that in the either the starting grid for the Grand Prix of Road Atlanta or the qualifying video for the Grand Prix of Road Atlanta. So we will take care of that as such. Coming up next will be the schedule. As you can see, it is now coming on the screen. And before I forget, as you can see on the schedule here, there are a number of things that are pretty interesting. There's a couple new tracks on the schedule, a couple tracks that we haven't seen in a while on the schedule, a long time on the schedule, and we will kind of deal with that as such. As you can see, the schedule is kind of lopsided. A lot of ovals early on and a lot of road courses later. So we will get to that we will get to that shortly. One thing also, the schedule is not complete. There is a possible Canadian race, which would be a race somewhere in the middle of the schedule, probably between round 12 and 13, somewhere around there, that is being talked about at a number of different tracks. So, and we're not even sure if that race is going to be on the schedule, so we'll take a look at that. So just keep that in mind. This could go up to a 19 race schedule, but right now it's at 18. First race of the season is the Grand Prix of Road Atlanta, the Monster Energy Grand Prix of Road Atlanta, the 24th running of it. This is a longer race now. It's being restored to 55 laps, so it's a little longer than it ever was before. 55 laps, of course, we did our preseason testing at Road Atlanta. Drivers are pretty comfortable with the way that Road Atlanta has been with these new cars. A lot of the crash festiness has kind of gone down because of the way that the track kind of has been lately. But the Grand Prix of Road Atlanta is round 1. Round 2 always used to be the traditional site of Daytona the last few years. However, that has changed because we are now going to the XTO Energy 200 at Texas Motor Speedway. You'll see that there's a lot of ovals early on in this early part of the schedule, and Texas Motor Speedway just happens to be one of them. This will be, Texas Motor Speedway has been renovated since the last time we ran here, so expect Texas to be something very interesting to watch. The last road course for a while is right here. This is the Honda ARCSOA Showdown at Barber Motorsports Park. It's been a long time since Barber's been on the schedule, and we are very excited to see them on the schedule this year. Barber should be a fun race. Those fans in Alabama, it's one of Alabama's 2 races this season. Of course, we go to Talladega later on in its traditional penultimate round. The LM Wind Power Little Rock 200 at Stuttgart Raceway is round 4. Stuttgart is, of course, a track that we have gone to in the past, but haven't gone to in a number of years. And Stuttgart Raceway in Arkansas will be a very fun track to go to. So we've got 2 road courses and 2 kind of moderate medium speed ovals. Well, actually Texas is pretty high speed, but Stuttgart's a little slower. 2 high speed speedways start off the season. The next race is a short track, the Express Scripts 150 at Gateway. Down in St. Louis. So Gateway is a track on the schedule. That should be a pretty fun race, I think. Followed by a trip up to the Northeast. So now we're going to get the 2 Northeast races out of the way. The Apollo Management 200 at Staten Island Super Speedway. This is kind of the Super Speedway replacement for Daytona. There have always been like 4 Super Speedways on the schedule. And, well, this is how they're replacing Daytona with the 6th round in Staten Island at the brand new Super Speedway there. This is the first new track to the ARCSOA Elite Series on the schedule. Round 7 is the Red Lobster 100. This is kind of a sprint race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Expect New Hampshire to be a pretty fun event. A lot of passionate fans out there for round 7. And round 8, you have the Diamond Resorts and Casinos 200 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That should be another Very interesting race. Round 9 is the 16th American 700, the second of the Triple Crown events. Of course, Road Atlanta being the first. And the American 700 is always the pinnacle of American stock car racing. Quite possibly the most important race, stock car race in the world. So the American 700 is always something interesting to watch. Now that we've gotten through the first half of the schedule, you're going to start going into a more road course-centered section of the schedule after this. So start looking out for this. Round 10 is the Cedar Fair 150 at Sandusky Speedway. This is a 150-lap race, the shortest race of the season at 75 miles around the Sandusky Speedway. Been a long, long time since we've seen this track on the schedule. Sandusky is, of course, the shortest track on the schedule as well. Round 11 is the Nationwide Grand Prix of Ohio, the second Ohio race in a row. We're actually doing 2 weekends in Ohio back-to-back, and that is at Mid-Ohio. So watch Mid-Ohio being a very fun race there as well, down in the Columbus area. Round 12 is the Sharpie 150 at Bristol Motor Speedway. Bristol has been begging for a race on the ARCSOA Elite Series schedule, and they finally are going to get one here. That will be a very high attrition-filled race, I take it, at Bristol. Of course, Bristol, the just over a half-mile bull ring, should be interesting to watch. And keep in mind, somewhere around here is also where we're expecting that Canadian race to fit in. Actually, it's looking like it might be between the 2 Ohio races, was one of the rumors, but also between Bristol and the Harley-Davidson Grand Prix of Wisconsin, which is the 13th round at Road America. So Road America, it gets its traditional date. Again, big change here. The Brickyard 400 presented by Sherwin-Williams is the third Triple Crown race. The Indianapolis 250 has been raised up to 400 miles, so watch this race to be a real fun one for a lot of the drivers on the grid here, as now the Triple Crown races are all more extended length races, so it should be pretty interesting to see how endurance plays a factor here. We go overseas for 2 races, with the Nissan Grand Prix of Japan at Suzuka and the Holden Grand Prix of Australia at Barbagallo Raceway. Of course, those 2 tracks should be pretty interesting to watch. Round 17, we have the AT&T 200. This is the second to last race, the AT&T 200 at Talladega, the last of the super speedways on the schedule. Last of 4 super speedways on the schedule, being Staten Island, Fontana, Indianapolis, and now Talladega on the schedule. And the final race is the ARCSOA World Championships at Port Skyline International Raceway, presented by VisitAmaria.com. It is a very long title, that race is. But we saw last season it came down to the last lap of the last race between 2 drivers fighting for the win and the championship. So that track is always a special one to go to. Coming up next is the points system for this season. Of course, there are some major point system changes coming up here. As you can see on the schedule, there will be, or on the screen coming up here, 50 points awarded for the win in every race, with 35 for second and 25 for third. It is very heavily top-ended, the point system's very heavily front-loaded, so the first couple of positions get a big advantage here. So getting a podium is very important with this season, as well as consistency as you go down to 16th, which is the last position on the grid that gets points. You get 5 points for pole. Now, what you have to keep in mind is, for the Triple Crown races, all the points are doubled. So for Road Atlanta, Fontana, and Indianapolis, you get 100 points to win that race. That is huge going forward here, and that is a big, big boost for anyone going forward. If you can win Road Atlanta, that really, it makes Road Atlanta a very important race, because that is 100 points immediately to start off the season. So whoever wins that race is going to have a big advantage in the early part of the year, as well as the winners of the American 700 and the Indianapolis 250. It just proves how important those 3 races are for the ARCSOA Elite Series schedule. Very, very important. Going on down the grid, as you can see, It's 15 points between first and second, 10 points between second and third, and 5 points between third and fourth, and that goes down by 2 until you get to 11th, which then it starts going down by 1 point by then. And then 17th on down gets nothing. So it's very important for the team championship and the drivers championship to consistently get top 16s. Also, if you're going for the real championship, you gotta get podiums. That's basically how this championship is going to be determined, is how often you get podiums and wins, basically. So they didn't want to go with a playoff-based system like some of the team owners, like Richard Silverspoon, wanted for his ARC American team, but they did go with a very heavily top-loaded point system in order to suit the needs of all. With that being said, that's pretty much it for the changes for the ARCSOA Elite Series for Season 26. There will be a couple of procedural changes with the stewards inquiries and stuff like that. The 3 strikes rule is apparently back, so it's 3 strikes and then you're suspended kind of a rule. That's going to be something back as well, but we won't get into that unless if we absolutely have to. We will talk about the teams at Road Atlanta. We'll see you then.